going to talk about compassionate leadership for project managers. Now, I think for us to do this, what we want to do is come up first with a definition, because what do I mean by being compassionate? Because it could be different things to different people. And I would like us together to share one definition. So there are three parts to compassion. There's a cognitive, right? Which is understanding. I understand you. I understand you. I understand what is happening to you. Then there's the affective. This is where some people call it empathy. I feel for you. I feel for you. And this is maybe not the most important, but I will say we can't have compassion, per my definition with all of you today. We can't have compassion without action. So this is this third part. This is this motivational component, which is I want to help you. All of these three components come together to define compassion. And so when we put them together and string them, if you will, into a definition, it's like this. It requires noticing that somebody, another individual, or even a group is suffering, that one develops feelings of empathy. So here is empathy. This is that second component, right? I feel for you. This is empathy. And it's about feeling empathetic towards the fact that I notice that you are suffering. And I feel sufficiently motivated or moved to do something, So compassion isn't just feeling like I feel for you. It's not just like, when you see somebody get yelled at by a project sponsor and you're like, oh, you know how that feels because it's happened to you. That it's good that we feel that, but it's that we feel moved to do something. Perhaps in that situation, I can remember in the past watching one of my colleague project managers, at the big meeting with the vice president, the big status meeting with the vice president. And I had this peer. He was a really good project manager, but he didn't do a very good job in his presentations. And he would have really difficult experiences because he wasn't ready, and he wasn't ready for the kinds of questions he would be asked by our executives. And then he would have a really, uncomfortable outcome because our executive would lose confidence in him because he couldn't answer questions, right? So compassion in that situation looked like I could see Jim having these horrible outcomes in these meetings. I could feel it because I've had times in my past where I've had a difficult meeting where I left just feeling terrible, or I got yelled at. I've had it happen. And so one day I went to him to talk to him to see if I could help him have a better experience in the meeting. All right. I want to be clear about a couple of things. Compassion is not pity, or sometimes we use the word sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for someone, because when I feel sorry for someone, that's a little condescending. Pity is condescending because it involves often the thought process of, oh, I'm glad that's not me. Oh, look at poor Jim having a terrible time. I'm so glad that's not me. And then when you hear people talk about mindfulness, and you do, right? Because mindfulness is a big topic these days. That's that first part, that noticing. So we need mindfulness. We need to notice what's happening around us, to the people and groups we work with, to see when there are times that they might be suffering, having a difficult time. So that's mindfulness. We do use empathy because we want to have those feelings, because developing those feelings of, oh, I remember what it was like when my sponsor yelled at me. That's developing those feelings is what leads us to the motivation to do something. So compassion is active. It's not just sitting and feeling badly for someone, it's action. And this action, when we take it, it makes a difference to our team members. Challenges that people deal with at work, and certainly over the last couple of years as we've walked through so much uncertainty and continue to do so, right? Stress. People have had a lot of it. Stress, and stress triggers upset, and stress triggers conflict. And when people have social support, and social support is when others gather around and help us, and when we feel like we can talk to the others around us and share our experiences. And Peter just talked about some of this, which is so beautiful. He talked about the giving people psychological safety, right? And supporting one another. The outcome from that is when people have that feeling of they are belonging to a group and they're happy about this group, that cohesive group, that reduces the negative impact of stress. And so if you wonder, why should I be compassionate to people at work, and you want to know about a business case for it, there is research that shows that it reduces turnover and it reduces challenges where we make mistakes because of stress. And so compassion, there is, if you want to make a business case for it, you can make a business case because employees who feel more secure, employees who get along well with you and others, do a better job, right? And the other thing is that when people experience compassion, when I see that my colleagues are mindful or notice when I'm having difficulty, and they take action to help me so that I have less difficulty, I feel more positive towards them and towards the organization. So when I feel more positive towards my coworkers, towards the person I work for, and towards my organization, I'm going to stay longer. I'm probably going to work harder, and there's going to be a better outcome. And so whether we're virtual or not, Peter just talked about those power teams. This is part of what it means to be a power team. A power team, whether they know it or not, part of what they're doing is extending compassion towards one another. And it starts with you because you're the leader. You're the project manager. You're the leader. Now, I know that there are probably some of you today who are wondering, well, this seems like something that shouldn't be at work, or if I'm compassionate, people will think that they can get away with anything. I won't be able to hold my people accountable. Or this sounds a lot like Margaret saying, just be nice. Nice is good, but I'm not saying just be nice. This is not about just be nice. And this is why I'm sharing this quote with you right now. Compassion isn't foolish. I think that's an important part. Compassion involves wisdom on your part as a leader, wisdom to know when to help and how to help, right? Like, you don't give me compassion every day if I don't like to get up early to come to work. So compassion is about wisdom. There's another word we use, discernment. We decide when. And, notice it moves on to say there's a yes in compassion and there's a no. With the same courage of heart. Buddhists call this the fierce sword of compassion. This is not easy. This is not easy. It's probably easy or easier to just do what people want and just be nice and never say anything when somebody's late and misses a deadline or doesn't do quality work. But that's weak. That's weak. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to lead people to make the world a better place. And the world doesn't become a better place if we don't encourage people to do their work, right? So compassion requires strength. It requires strength. And let's just look at what I'm talking about, and how do we do this? So the good news is, as leaders, these are things that you are already doing. As leaders, these are things you are already doing, or I want you to be doing, as do I think everyone who is here with you during this conference, who's sharing information with you, because we want you all to be doing the best that you can and to be making this world a better place. And we're making the world a better place through our interactions with our team members and our projects that our team members are completing. So that's what we want. So it starts with noticing, right? Because that's that mindfulness piece. I can't know that you're suffering if I don't even notice you. And it also is listening, that active listening. Listen to what your team members are saying to you in status meetings, in other get-togethers. What are they saying to one another in this virtual world? What's going on in the chats? What's going on in the virtual breaks? What's coming up when we're doing team building? We need to develop these professional relationships. Otherwise, when you work to do something compassionate for somebody, a team member, a colleague, if they don't have a relationship with you, they might not feel trusting. They might not feel trusting. Well, can you ever show compassion to someone that you don't act with very much? Yes, absolutely. There are definitely times in an organization where there could be somebody in another group and you learn that they go through something difficult and you take steps to help them. Then what will help you is if they have some sense of you as a professional, even if they don't have a big relationship with you, if they have an idea, oh, this is Margaret. I know who she is. She works in the other group. This is her reputation. This is how I've seen her behave. Then they will trust me and accept compassion from me and not be suspicious. Because compassion is not necessarily about political. Now, there are politics in project management. Politics are not a bad thing. And there are times politically when we do things for each other as an exchange. I'll give you this resource if you give me that resource. I'll go ahead and slip this deadline as long as I don't hit the end date in order to give you resources for your project. And that is about bartering and trading and political relationships. And compassion is not about political. We don't want to use compassion as one of our political approaches or tools, right? Because this is really about deep and sincere. So we are expressing concern and we are being sincere. And again, I truly hope these are things that you already do as a leader. It's just that maybe you didn't see how it also is the framework for extending compassion. But it is. This is the framework. Another way for us to look at it is stop thinking only about ourselves and looking outward, right? I need to be looking outward, not so much inward about me and my world and what I want. And, if you've ever had that day where you're upset, I hope not too many of them, but we have days where we're upset and we might think something along the lines of, why is this happening to me? Why are my projects always so difficult? Why can't I get my team? That's all inward, right? That's me, me, me. Compassion is outward. It is about we. It is about we. And the leadership approaches that we use to go from in here to out here with everyone else, is to practice productive conflict resolution. So you are drawing on all of your leadership skills here. You're getting better at conflict resolution. You're not letting the team have conflict that doesn't move on. You're getting if there's negativity, you're not allowing it to build up. You're allowing people to express it. And that helps stem some of the suffering. Sometimes what we need is to be heard. Sometimes one of the most compassionate things you can do as a leader is to listen to your team, to let them say what they need to say, even if you don't like it, even if it feels like criticism. That's one of the most, when we can let them do that more often, it doesn't build up into a big, explosion, and then somebody's really upset. We want to reward compassionate behavior. We want to build a team culture of compassion. This is so important because so much of compassion comes from team member to team member. You as the leader, of course, you set the tone. If you show that you think compassionate behavior is a positive thing, you mention it, you bring it up, and as Peter just said earlier, you praise those who exhibit this behavior. You are showing your team that this is part of our culture, and this is who we are, and this is how we want to be. Because it's not enough for you, although you as the leader, you're the role model, but it needs to be from team member to team member. It needs to be all of you. You want to build a situation, a team culture where everyone freely is comfortable to exhibit compassion. That is what you're doing. Sharing information also is compassionate when you can, because some of our suffering on the job comes from rumors and uncertainty and concerns about the future. So when we can, we want to share information. And we definitely want to acknowledge difficult situations and offer assistance, right? Maybe in the scenario where or when I said, oh, what if I'm a poor estimator? What if I do a bad job estimating? And you're going to hold me accountable and then work to teach me? Well, what if, I have this thing that I promised I would finish by the end of the day today, and I'm having a really hard time, and I'm going to have a really late night staying and finishing it because you're holding me accountable. Compassion may look like some of my colleagues staying and working with me to help me meet my deadline. And then we follow up later in reviewing my estimates and teaching me how to do a better job. And that is how compassion can be applied for you as the leader and from team member to team member. And so this is what we want to do. Now, to get even more specific, like, well, okay, Margaret, this all sounds like a good idea, but tell me more. Like, what am I really supposed to do? So here are some specific examples of things that I believe almost all of us here today can do. What about that nervous team member? You've got a nervous team member who needs to come in and do part of the executive presentation because it involves a piece of the project where she has the subject matter expertise and she is the right one, but she's a very nervous speaker. You're still going to require her to do it, right? So compassion isn't, oh, never mind, you don't have to do it. Or, oh, you can put it in writing and somebody else will read it for you. No, compassion is helping her to develop and become a better speaker. And you are going to help her practice and get more comfortable so that she has a better outcome. And then after, I really like Peter's praise. You're going to let her know where she did a good job, and you're going to help her get stronger. Another example, when you have an area of strength, share it with your colleague, but don't expect something in return. Don't expect that reciprocity. That's that thing earlier when I was talking about it. This is not about politics. I don't come and help you out of your suffering because I want you to do something for me later. That's not compassion. That's building up political credits, right? That's building up your political credits. So this is about helping someone with no expectation of any return. In a sense, when I went to my colleague Jim, who was having those really difficult meetings because he wasn't prepared, I liked Jim. I knew he was a good project manager, and I knew this was hurting his reputation. And I just wanted him to have a better outcome. And I sat with him and shared with him how I prepared for meetings in advance so that I would be more polished, right? Maybe you can work with your human resources department to pool time off. This is something that in a case study, there was an organization where there was an employee who had a family member who was sick, and the family member had cancer. And, all across the world, we have all kinds of different policies about taking time off, right? So I'm in the United States. We have a terrible reputation for not taking enough time off, right? And this is a case study that was conducted in the United States. And so this person ran out of time. They took their time off. They took their sick time to take care of their family member. Then they took their vacation time. And then they were out of time. And I think they were going to go on leave. That's another thing we offer. And they were taking leave, but you're only allowed to do that for a certain amount of time. But when somebody is very sick for a long time, all of those things may not be enough. This person's coworkers got together, went to their human resources department and said, can we donate the time off that we haven't used and put it in that person's account so that this person can take time off, their job won't be in jeopardy, and we're giving them our paid days so they can get paid. This is one of the most compassionate things that I've heard about of people doing for someone at work. And that is an amazing thing. No expectation of anything in return, helping someone who's going through a difficult time, right? So that at least this person wouldn't have to worry about their job being at risk. And then, help a struggling employee find training and other resources so that he or she, or, so that somebody builds up their skills, right? So we can look at someone and notice that they're not doing a good job, and we can advise them appropriately, and we can get them help. Whether they continue to work for you or not in life, don't you want this person to be successful, to be able to earn a living, to feel good about their work? I vote yes, you do. So these are some specific things you can do to be compassionate. Now, at this point, if you still are feeling a little uncomfortable about this idea of being compassionate at work, I ask you to consider, maybe take a picture of this now, and maybe later when you have time, do some journaling for yourself and answer these 3 questions. What would make you be hesitant to show compassion to a team member? Maybe write down examples of where you're comfortable and where you're not. I'm going to guess that there are certain situations where you feel comfortable extending compassion and situations where you don't. And to be honest, if we're being really honest, there are some people that you are comfortable with and some people that you are not. But compassion isn't about whether or not I like someone. That has nothing to do with it. It is really about deep humanity of seeing someone is suffering and wanting to help them out of that suffering. And then, if you had to debate yourself, write down the pros and cons of showing compassion in your workplace, on your team. And as I wrap up, I just want you to consider making a pledge. Can you make this pledge that you will ask your team what they believe workplace compassion is? What does it mean to them? And observe your team and your work culture.